Okay, that should be better. All right, forgot to hook up the mic. Hey, Hodgepodge, how's it going? All right, so I got pretty much everything where I need it. I just need to, locate a piece of wood to use for the lid. So I guess I'll just get to that when I get to it. So how you guys doing? Take this thing off of here. Let's see. Yep. Yeah, I'm off to a little bit of a late start. I was at work today, and I had to carry a ladder across campus, and I must have carried it wrong or something. My back's been killing me, so came home and laid down a few minutes too long. Apologize for that. But we will be getting started here shortly. Let's see. I think that might do. Yeah, I think that'll do. All right. So, I think we left off last week working on this cherry box, the one with all the cracks in it. And we left off at the part where we put the inlay in. So I'm going to use this piece of Purple Heart right here for that purpose. And we're going to get that thing put in there. I actually ended the stream early last week because I just wanted to make sure that we had enough time to like really go over the inlay process, because not only is this useful for this project, but you might find a couple of useful tips for other applications as well. So, let's see. I think we're about ready. I did want to say a couple of things about these boxes. Well, before I do that, let's see who all's in here. Misfit 74, welcome. Blue Light Turners Workshop, also welcome. Yeah, so let's get started. So what I was going to say is, so I've really been working on my process for doing this. So I didn't wait until I was like really proficient at it before I started sharing about it. So as a result, I've learned several things since I started doing it. I think I'm going to try to make a second video. It'll probably be a regular YouTube video, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that I found, like how to, some ways to make sure that when you get finished, the inlay and the lid are centered, if not perfectly close to it. I found a couple of things for that, a couple of different ways to cut it, some other ways to utilize the material. So be on the lookout for that. I'm not going to try to put any time frame on it, because with the way things are going around here, who knows? Could be tomorrow, could be next week. Who knows? We'll see. So anyway, we're going to get back to this piece right here. I'm going to switch over to the overhead camera here. Sorry about that. And this is the piece of cherry that we were working on. This is the piece of cherry that we were working on last week. And we got to the point where we have the recess cut in for our inlay, and we're going to get welcome, Jamie. Thanks for the super chat. Let's see. Welcome, Jim. Anyway, we've gotten to the point now where we can put our inlay in there, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna use this piece of Purple Heart here. So I have actually we'll switch over here. So I have this piece. Let's see here. Yeah, nothing like a little bit of zoom in action to get you dizzy. So I cleaned up this area here last time using the square nose scraper, because I don't trust the Forstner bits, and I got that pretty much where I want it. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to take this off and mount up this piece of Purple Heart. Now I'm gonna use a separate chuck. You don't have to do that. You could just as easily it'd be hard to cut your inlay first, but you could just as easily pull it off the chuck But if you're going to do that, make sure you mark the the location of the jaws in the area on the bottom of the piece that you're going to part off anyway later. So let's grab another, grab another chuck here. That one's naked. We got to put some jaws on it. This is the Easy Wood chuck. If you haven't seen it before, it's really nice the way you can quickly load these jaws in without having to bother with screws and things. It's a real nice feature. All right. Okay. Oops. All right. So let's get cracking on this. Now, what we need to do is I'm going to use my calipers to get a rough idea of what size I want this inlay to be. For this, I don't really trust the calipers that much either, but I get down close, fairly close to where I need to be, and this is actually pretty close to start with, so I won't be taking off very much. But I'm gonna get it close with this, and then I'll be using the actual workpiece to check the fit as I go. And grab my parting tool here. All right, and then let's get cracking. So I'm going to take off just a little bit at a time. Let's see. I know the end of this is not trued up, so I'm going to take some of that out now. Okay. I'm going to remove just a little bit. I'm not going to cut this, I'm not going to cut this edge too far back because, if I'm off, and all I'll have to do is take this little bit off. It's not a big deal. This is actually a fairly large blank for me. When I'm making the inlays, usually it's much smaller than that. So this looks like that is pretty close. So let's take a look and see what our workpiece has to say about it. Not quite. All right. So since I know that size is just a little bit big, and I'm gonna have to cut it down a little bit anymore, I'm gonna go ahead and make the rest of the. Well, at this point it's a tenon, but that's going to be the shoulder that's going to fit down in our inlay, in a recess for our inlay. So I'm going to go ahead and take this down to that level. Because I know I need to take off just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to shave off just a little bit. And also, it helps a lot to go ahead and put a slight chamfer on this outside edge right here. That's going to help it to seat down in there. So we're still not quite there. Let's see what we got going on up here. So, Misfit says he's considering the VM120. I think I have a VM100. I've been pretty happy with that too. Chili Man says, what's the best way to keep the piece even when turning off axis? As far as, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but if you're asking about holding the work when it's off axis, this is what I like to use. This is a flexible point center. The most important thing is that this has a point in the middle, and this one's spring loaded, which is a nice extra. But the most important thing is this ring around the outside. because you don't want to drive a point into the end of your into the end grain on your piece. And typically when we're doing those off axis things, you know, we're working fairly close to the edge, so you don't want to drive a wedge in there. So actually this part will, because it's spring loaded, it'll recess into the piece, allowing you to register center, and it's actually the ring that's doing the holding. So you're not putting a wedge, you're not driving a wedge into it, and you don't risk splitting your ends. I hope that answers the question. Let's see. Yeah, having no chuck screws is sweet. Let's see. Misfit74 also says the scraper looks like a bidan. This is actually a beading and I think this is the Robert Sorby beading and parting tool. Beading and parting tool is what they call it. It's but basically it's a big parting tool. It's a 3/8 inch wide parting tool. I also have a 1/4 inch one, and you can see that those are fairly similar. I think the angle's just a little bit different. Or maybe it's just, no, they're both the same angle. It's just one is a little bit narrower this way. But this one is clearly wider across the cutting face. But it's basically a parting tool. A bidan would be flat, would have a bevel on the bottom and flat on the top. See what else we got. All right, I'll come back to the questions in a minute. Anyway, back to this thing. So we're not quite there with the fit, so I'm going to take off just a little bit more. I find that it's easiest when you're trying to sneak up on the fit to, make a little cut like that. Not sure if that shows or not, but you make a little cut like that, and then just use this leading edge right here and traverse across the tenon. And it's an easy way to, I find that to be much easier to remove a small amount of material that way. So I can see now that it's fitting on the end, but not necessarily all the way up. So probably what that means is this shoulder isn't exactly square, so I'm going to work on taking away a little bit of material near the base of this, which would also be the top of the inlay. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that same cut, but I'm just going to bias the back side. Try not to cut too much on the front. Okay. I'm going to put my little chamfer back. All right. Let's see. Okay, so that's good. It's actually a little loose, but I think it's going to be, once I get it in there with some glue, I think we're going to be good. So you'll also notice that I made that tenon a little bit bigger, a little bit longer than this is deep, so that it's going to stick out over the top edge. You definitely want it to do that. You want it to bottom out because you don't want to see a gap between. You don't want to see a gap underneath the inlay once you hollow the thing out. So let's go ahead and part that off. Now that we have it down the size, we'll go ahead and part that off, and we'll get to gluing that inlay in there into the workpiece. All right. Okay, and there's our inlay. I didn't see that little crack in there, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. Man, it's like a theme with this project. Everything's got cracks in it. It's crazy. Okay. So let's get this off of here so we can move on to the next step. Okay. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I don't have to use a wrench or anything to remove my chucks off the lathe, and that is thanks to this little yellow washer thing right here. I highly recommend those. It keeps your chuck from freezing up on the spindle, and I'm always able to take mine off by hand, which is really handy. So go ahead and slide this on, thread this on here. Okay, and switcheroo. Okay, so I get me some CA glue. This is Starbond CA. It says flexible thin, but it's actually thick. I just ran out of thick bottles. So anyway, this Purple Heart, I probably should have took a little bit more time cutting that shoulder, because now I got all these little finger deals. So I want to make sure that I push all those up or remove them, because I don't want them getting in between the side of my in between the side of this inlay piece and the recess. All right, so what I'm going to do is put my CA inside the recess. Let's see. Into the bottle's all boogered up. So, all right, let's see if we can get some glue out of there. All right, so I'm going to cover the side walls of this pretty good with CA. I try not to put any on the bottom because I don't really find that it's all that necessary, and it makes it harder to get the middle out, because I like to just use a parting tool and cut it out and let it pop out of there. So I got that done, got some CA in there, and what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to put the activator on the edge of this, not because I need it, but just because I want to get this, I want to keep this moving. So I did that. So now I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to use a dead blow to tap it, to seat it home. This one fit actually really well, so I almost didn't even need that. All right. I'm going to give that a few seconds while I do that, take a look at the questions in the chat. I go back a little bit. Let's see. What do we got? Let's see. I do have a vacuum chuck. I use the Frugal vacuum chuck from frugalvacuumchuck.com. I'm actually waiting on a new vacuum pump, because I didn't opt to buy his vacuum pump, and I bought one of the cheap ones and it's total garbage. So I'm waiting on the new one to come in. It says turning the piece in evenly. What tips do you have for making sure each of the four sides are turned in evenly to end, so the end shape? So I covered, Chili Man's asking, how do I make sure that each of the four sides are turned evenly? I covered that in the first half. Well, I covered the first version of that in the first half. Actually, I'm going to have a second video that will likely be on my YouTube channel that's going to be talking about some of the things I found to make corrections if the sides aren't perfectly even right when you finish it, because I'm still learning how to do this. So that video should have a lot of good information in it, because I've learned quite a few things doing these. Let's see. Yeah, jam chucks are really good. Hodgepodge, I use those a lot. Misfit 74. Actually, you don't actually need to have cold jaws. You can, what you can actually do is you can take another bowl blank that's about the same size, and you can actually make a jam chuck on the end of that bowl blank and mount your bowl to the lathe that way. And the area that you'd likely have to remove would be taken away anyway when you cut the bottom. You cut the curve on the bottom of the bowl. So you don't actually need to have cold jaws. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Say. No, I did not make the yellow washer. I actually got it from Easy Wood Tools. It came with, it either came with my chuck or it came with that a 1" 8 adapter that I put on here for the smaller chucks. And yeah, they do sell them at craft supplies also. And Misfit 74, you were saying that the Frugal vacuum chuck looks pricey. Actually, it's actually pretty affordable. And the chuck that they give you, the new pump that they sell you is oilless, which is really nice. It doesn't put out that oil vapor like a lot of the cheaper ones do. And it also is rated to run pretty much 24/7. So those little ones get hot, the cheaper ones get hot, and they can start to lose vacuum while you're using them, which is not great. The one that he sells is actually, I think it's a medical grade. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's a medical grade pump. I did a lot of reading on it, and it seemed like the thing for me, so that's the way I went. But it is a tremendous deal. If you look that model up, off of his website, it's actually quite a bit more expensive than he sells it for. Let's see. All right. So I got. All right, good. We're gonna be able to see pretty good there. So basically, I brought up the tailstock. I brought up the tails live center for support. I don't really think I need it, but I have had that thing pop out before. I have had the inlay pop out because I don't give it a whole lot of time to dry. It's just really been just a couple of minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start establishing this top face and cutting this inlay flush. So I'm going to use my 3/8 inch spindle gouge, and I'm going to ride the bevel on the back of the tool to kind of control how straight I cut in. And the thing is, when you're cutting these things, when you're cutting that face, you want to make sure that you're firm with it. Once you start cutting, don't back off. Don't stutter. Just make your cut go straight through the corner before you stop, because if you don't, then you'll end up with little ridges in your in the edge. And I think I just boogered up the corners chatting. It's not too bad. Should be able to fix that. So when you make that cut, let's see here. All right, when you make that cut, once I commit to go in, I gotta go. I can't pause and stop. So I'm gonna go ahead and get myself situated here. Start cutting. Keep pressure on it. Okay. Especially if you want it flat. So I'm in now. I'm going to cut straight across. Okay. And now I should have nice clean corners, which I do. All right. Nice clean flat corners. And I have a good transition. And I have a real nice transition right there between the Purple Heart and the cherry. All right. I like to have this inlay be real thin. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the tailstock away, take the live center away, and I'm going to use a parting tool to pop that material in the middle out. I mean, you could turn it too, but I'd like to say that I use all the little scraps and stuff, but I just really don't have time. But if you were so inclined, this little piece of Purple Heart right here, you could make a little pendant or further inlays or whatever, in the case that you don't come into you don't come into these valuable hardwoods often. You don't want to waste it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this really small parting tool that I made out of a hacksaw blade, and I'm going to go in. I'm going to figure out exactly where I want how thick I want this thing, and I'm just going to part it off. In fact, what I'm probably going to do is just part up against this shoulder right here, because, there's no point in having a little flat out here, and I can always cut this back to get the size inlay that I want. So I'm going to try to either go straight in or slightly angled so that I don't affect the part that I want to keep. Okay, and then if I need a little bit more space, I'm going to angle it a bit, make a little room. Okay, now, there we go. Out it comes. Coincidentally, that is actually a lot faster than turning that piece out. So that's why I like doing it that way. All right. So we got the waist out now. So now we can start working on our shoulder and getting this inlay down to the size that we want it to be. So to do that, I'm going to be using my square nose scraper again. So, I always set my scraper so that they are just north of center, and then cut down to it. Seems to give the best cut. Not too much junk in my pocket. Take that stuff out of there. Okay. So when you're making these cuts, these first cuts I'm going to make are really just kind of cleaning up the shoulder of the inlay, not really sizing it. But once we get down to business, you're going to want to be as parallel to the bedways as you can be to make sure that the walls are straight. And I'm going to show you a little thing that I do to make sure that the walls are straight before I commit to working on the lid. I think this is up a little high, a little too high, or I might have to sharpen it. Okay. I think I'm gonna have to go sharpen that. I'll be right back. Let's see here. All right. That should be better. There we go. Oops. I do not know what's going on with that thing today. Pick that up a little bit. Okay. All right. So we have our shoulder now. So here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've been doing to make sure that the side of this is parallel. So basically I just take my caliper, okay? I take my caliper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a side, and then I'm going to put the caliper all the way into the bottom and close those jaws down and lock it, okay? And I'll pull it out, and then I'm going to come up to the top and check it. And if it doesn't fit well, you know, if there's slack at the top, then you know the bottom is too wide. And right now, and typically when it's off for me, it's usually, if it's not straight, then it's usually angled kind of in, which is the case here. There's just a little bit of extra material in there that I need to get rid of, I think. Let me see. Yeah, I feel just a little bit of material down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and clean that up just a little bit before I make my lid. If you want a good fitting lid, you know, you really got to take the time to get this part right. Okay. Then I'll just repeat the same process. So should fit just a little bit better now. Okay, so make sure that when you're doing this that the jaws are lying flat on the walls too, because if it's angled, you get an error. You get like an erroneous measurement. But right there, that's pretty good. So I'm good there. So now I can go ahead and hollow this out. And when we're hollowing this out, we need to make sure that we leave a shoulder. We need to make sure that we leave a shoulder in here for you to make sure that we leave a shoulder so that the lid has something to sit on. So we're going to remove the majority of this material and just leave a little bit right here on the edge. And I'm going to use my spindle gouge to hollow it with. And you've probably seen me do it before, but if you haven't, basically what I'm going to do is once I get started with this, I'm basically going to bring the point of the tool in the center, and then I'm going to open the flute up just a little bit, and then I'm going to pivot towards the walls like that. And I'll be cutting off this part of the wing of the gouge right here, just the top of it, the very top of it, just the one side of the tip. This is a very effective way to hollow boxes. In fact, it's my go-to these days. And when you're doing this, if it starts making a lot of noise, it usually means you're taking off too much material. Just make a lighter cut, and you'll be fine. The way I'm holding this tool right now is a little awkward. I'm really just doing it for the benefit of the video. But the way I would recommend it, let's see if you can see. The way I would recommend holding the tool for this operation, put the top part of your handle in your palm like that. Let's see, get it in the shot. Okay, and then with your finger on the bar and tuck that into your body, which I know you really can't see that, but tuck this part right here into your body, and that's going to give you a nice secure hold. It's going to give you a stable grip on this thing, and it's going to make doing this much easier with less vibration. But I'm doing it a little different just so that you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to check my depth now. I just had that thing to do that with. While I'm doing that, I did want to say that you can also use this tool when you're hollowing that way. You can also rotate it to the side like that, and then you can use this wing to level out the sides, to straighten the sides. But when you're doing that, you need to be sure that this point does not come in contact with the bottom, because you will not. That will be exciting in a way that you will probably not enjoy. So now what I'm doing is I'm gonna use this tool to decide how deep I want this, and this is the setting I normally use, so I'm gonna go with that. So basically, when I put this in, when this touches the bottom, I'll know because this bar here will touch the top edge on both sides. So I got a ways to go still. Okay. So that noise it was making just now, that's the noise you get when you're cutting off too much. Ooh, I think I may have made a mistake. I think I cut too far. And we'll see how it goes. Pick this up just a little bit. Keep at it. Oops. Okay. All right, let's see where we're at. All right, we're there. Well, technically we're just a little north of there, but by the time I fix the little divot in the bottom, it'll be where I need to be. So to get that little divot, I'm going to use the point of the tool. I know I said don't, but I won't be in contact with the side, so it's okay. I'm going to use the tip of the tool to go in and just clean up that little bottom nub. And it helps to get down low and have some kind of light or something so that you can see what you're doing. Oops. So you don't want to dig in. When you make that cut, you want to just make contact with the wood and then just kind of traverse across the bottom. Kind of traverse across the bottom of the box. And that'll get you pretty close. And then we're going to use our square nose scraper to straighten the walls out. I can get rid of that. Ooh. The air's out in here. I'm sweating. I understand that not everybody has air in their shops, but ooh, this is rough. I've been waiting on my uncle for like a week to come and fix it for me. So now I'm going to use this, and I'm going to just go down the sides and straighten it up and then get down and try to get a nice clean corner for the base. This is only necessary if you want to have straight sides. If you want to have a curved bottom, then you could use a rounded scraper, or you could make the bottom, you could make that shape with your spindle gouge as well. So now I'm just cleaning up the bottom. Oops. Okay. I got to be careful because I cut away a little bit more of the shoulder there than I meant to. I think there's still enough there for me to make it work, though. Let's take a look. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be all right. Yeah, there's definitely enough there. So anyway. All right, so now we have, so now it's all hollowed out and ready for the lid. See if I can, get that in there. So now it's all hollowed out. We got a nice square corner in the bottom, flat bottom. So now I just need to find a piece to put in the top. To your question earlier about getting the sides correct, getting the sides even. So this one would have been pretty good, except I want to say it was the axis. It was one of these two axes here that either this one or this one. And when I remounted it to the lathe, to turn it, I actually missed that spot. I had a little divot on there, but it wasn't deep enough, and I ended up putting it somewhere else. So that's why this side over here is a little bit off. But yeah, I even now I have a little trick I can show you on how to fix that. And like I said, that'll be in that additional video. Not that I'm trying to clickbait you guys into watching another video, but it's just a lot of information. I want to overdo it on one video. So now I'm gonna find, I think I said I was gonna use this right here to make our top piece, and this will work because it's got some nice spalting in it, although I will warn you about using stuff like this because it's also fairly punky. I mean, it's pretty, but that is fairly punky, so you'll need some sharp tools, probably high speeds, to get that to look halfway decent. See, I think this chuck will do. Yeah, that'll do. So let's get this thing mounted up on here and wipe the sweat out of my eyes and check out the chat thing here. Let's see. Actually, I don't usually put anything on my lathe bed because usually the shop is air conditioned, so I don't really have issues with rust and things like that from humidity. And I always cover the bed with something if I'm going to be putting anything, wet sanding or applying any kind of finishes or anything like that. I always cover up the lathe bed anyway, so I don't use any of that stuff. If your Hodgepodge says that he uses, I think he says Johnson's. There's a product, I call it bowling alley wax, but I think it's called clear. Let me grab it. It's a crystal clear paste wax. That works pretty good. Oh, that's why I call it bowling alley wax. It's on the little price tag thing there. I use that, and it doesn't smell as bad as the Johnson's, if I'm going to do something like that. Okay, so alright, so I got this piece of spalted maple on here. As you can see, it's not square, but this is much bigger than the piece I need, so I'm definitely going to be able to get what I need out of here. So I'm just going to get this going, face it off, and start preparing my lid. Not so much trying to get a good cut as I'm just trying to get a relatively flat surface on the top. And go back with the spindle gouge, see if I can't get a better facing on this thing, and crank the speed up a little bit too. Alright, that's not going to be great. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to use that. Yeah, that looks pretty bad. It's too punky. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a decent finish off of that. So I'm going to look around and grab something else. Be right back. Let's see, what do we got? I got all these little pieces of wood stashed around the shop. Let's see if that's big enough. I got some of these little colorful things left over, little stabilized pieces with some colors in it. Let's see if any of these are big enough. Yeah, I think we got a winner there. Yep. This pink one's good. See how this yellow one fares. Yep, I think that's the one. I think this is what we'll go with right here. Yeah. Okay, so let me figure out which side I need to use. All right. Gonna need a different chuck. Smaller jaws on it. This'll do. I have another chuck with 50mm jaws on it, but must be preoccupied with another project. Okay, sorry about that little distraction. But we're back. So I'm going to use this piece right here to make the lid. Give it a little pop of color. Okay, get that tight. We're going to be working pretty close to the chuck with this one. It's not that unusual for me. I do that all the time with these things. All right. Get my parting tool, and we're going to start the sizing process all over again, just like before, because this is actually going to end up being a jam chuck kind of situation as well. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and measure the opening for the lid. All right, got that set up. So then I'm going to start turning this material back, and because this is tapered, I'm going to try to work outside this flat and see how much more material I can get out of it. How much, because there's not a whole lot here. I don't really need a whole lot, but I want to get as much as I can. So I made a little cut there, and I'm checking with my calipers, and that's a little big. So I'm going to take off just a little bit more, and then I'm going to do a little test fit. Okay. See what we got. All right, we're still too big. Good. Come in here. Nope. All right. So the more of this material that I'm taking off on this slope here, my potential blank is actually getting thicker, which is what I want, because I'd rather have extra material so that I can be free to design the lid the way I want to and not be limited by the piece of material I have available to make a lid with. I'm going to take a little bit more off before I do my test fit, using that leading edge of the tool. Okay. Oops. Yikes, that wasn't good. Hang on, I dropped my dock where all the things get connected, all the cameras get connected. Hopefully it won't cause any service interruptions. All right, so let's try this again. We're getting close. Taking off just a little bit. Looks like I'm going to end up with a lot more of a blank than I thought I would. Okay, so this is pretty much the fit that I want. Because I need this to be tight, because I'm going to use the base, the bottom half of this box as a jam chuck to shape the lid so that I can get the kind of so I can get the top edge of my lid and the top edge of the box to be flush. Okay. All right. Okay. So now I'll do one more check. Should be good. Yeah, I'm good now. So now I can finish off the bottom of this. It's important to do it now because this is going to be the last time it's going to be really convenient. That's not to say you can't do it later. What I have done when I forgot to do it is use the body of the piece as a jam chuck and just flip this piece over, and just flip that piece over so that the bottom is up, and sometimes you have to use a little paper towel or something to jam it in there, but it's real hard to get it out afterwards without damaging it. So it's a lot easier to do it now. So I'm just going to remove some of this because I don't need it. I don't need any of this. Okay. So I'm going to cut all this off. All right, and then we're going to work on the bottom of the lid. And we're going to use the spindle gouge for that. So basically what I'm going to do is just cut a slight hollow into the bottom. You don't want to go too deep with it because The thing is, you're going to drill a hole in the lid to put the tenon from your pull. And I use a brad point bit, and the little pointy spur in the middle. If you're not careful, it's real easy to go through the lid and have that little point show up in the middle. And depending on the aesthetic you're going for, that can really kind of like ruin the inside of your lid. So you want to, I obviously want to have the bottom of this thing finished. So when you open it up, it doesn't look like it's a spot you forgot. You want to look like you want these things to look like, you're making art. So you want them to look like you've attended to every detail. You've given everything a little bit of thought. So, all right, let's take a look at that. That should be about right. All right. And I like to do a little texturing. So I'm going to pull out my texturing tool here. I'm going to do just a little bit of texturing on the bottom. Actually, touch it with a little bit of sandpaper first. Get my speed down. All right. Just touch it up with a little bit of sandpaper real quick. All right. And then I'm going to come back about 600 RPM. Cutter lined up on center. And then I'm going to use the tool vertically. So the tool itself is 90 degrees standing up. And then I'm going to approach it at about a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to actually pivot the tool. I'm going to pivot the tool into the work, and it's going to hold it there, and that's going to give me hopefully a little flower in the middle. So here we go. Okay. Then I'm going to come out a little bit and angle it just a little. Okay. Holding it there for a little while really helps to really seat that design down in there. And let's see, it looks like we got a pretty nice one. See, oop, wrong direction. There we go. We got a pretty nice little flower in there and some spirals around the outside. So now I'm going to take my point tool. I'm just going to, the little flower in the middle really helps if you separate the center bit a little bit. So we're going to do that now. I just looked at the time. I'm running way, way over. So let me quit yapping and get this thing done. I find it's a lot easier to line this up with the lathe off. So I'm going to set it up where I want it. Do that. All right. Okay. Then we're going to take this out of here and take this out of here. Get this chuck off, and then we're going to go back to the body of it and turn the top. Okay. So mount our box back up. Okay. So here's our the bottom of our lid here. So what we're going to do is just press that in. Okay. And it shouldn't easily turn. If the fit's right, it won't easily turn once it's in there, which is important because you need it to stay put so you can cut it. Typically, I don't need tailstock support for this, but we'll see how it goes. So, I don't know. That's not seated in there right or what? Let's take a look and see. Seems like it. Maybe the bottom of it wasn't completely square. Let's see. All right, because I want that in there. I want that seated in there pretty well because that's going to affect my fit later. And evidently there's something under there. Maybe it's dirt. Let's get my, oops. get my dust air hose and blow that out and see what it is that's causing that. All right, that's better. Okay, so now we got that locked up. Let's get this thing out of the way. And first thing I'm going to do is kind of start to waste away all this extra material out here. My speed back up. So whenever you're turning something in a jam chuck, it's always advisable, if you can, to turn back towards the headstock and drive. Basically, I'm going to try, when I'm cutting, I want all the forces to drive that piece into the headstock. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Okay. So, since it doesn't want to stay in there, we're going to give it some encouragement by way of the tailstock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this live center right here. And you can see that it doesn't have any kind of point on it. So it's really just there to keep this thing from popping out. In this case, it wouldn't really matter if it had a point in it, because I'm going to remove the majority of that. But sometimes it does matter. If your lid piece wasn't quite as thick as this and have as much waste on it, that might not be a good idea. So let's go ahead and start taking some of this out. Let's speed up a bit. Okay. So when we're making this cut right here, to get it flushed up to the surface, what I typically do is set the bevel flat on the top face that I already cut, and then I can just drive right into it and get that very edge level with the rest of the top. And I'm basically going to make just a little cut just to get rid of some of that material, because I want it to be domed. So I really want to just get that edge right there. And then I can pick it up, pick the cut back up, and work my way up to this slightly dome shape that I'm shooting for the lid. I'm going to switch to a smaller spindle gouge so I can start to work away some of the material on this piece up here. You know, depending on what you're going for, you could cut your pull out of this material that I'm parting off right now. But that's not usually the way I go with it. So let's get this tailstock out of here. And because I know this is going to have a tendency to want to fly out on me, so I'm going to be taking some real light cuts to get rid of that stuff. Like I said, you know, I could easily turn this into a lid. In fact, I think, actually, you know what? I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to just turn that into a lid. If I don't like it, then I'll just cut it off and go with the other plan. So I'm going to take a little bit of this off. A little bit of the side. Now that I'm planning on keeping it, I have to be nicer about it. Well, possibly plan on keeping it. All right, so we're down. Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to survive that. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and shape it anyway, just so I can show you how that works. No, I'm not. It's got too many problems. All right. All right, so now that I have this flattened off on the top, what I'm also going to do is take the tip of the tool. I'm going to make just a slight indentation right there just to help the drill bit find home. And then I'm going to show you one more thing because, yeah, I'm running over. So I'm going to show you one more thing because, you know, shaping the pull is not really that big of a deal. But I want to show you how to get this lid out of this jam chuck hold that we have it in there. It's actually pretty easy. So basically this is a quarter inch drill bit, and I have a little blue mark there, and that depth seems to serve fairly well for these boxes. So, and we don't want to be cutting too deep with that because I don't want to pop out the other side. Okay. All right. So here is my little tool, my little trick. All right. So what this is a dowel. All right. And what I did is I took calipers and I measured the exact size hole that that drill bit is gonna cut. All right. And then what I do with this is I'm just gonna use this for leverage, really. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'll put it in there and just turn this to the side, and you can pop it off. Now, that hole isn't really the right size somehow because, you know, they wobble sometimes and they end up a little bit bigger. So what I do is take a paper towel and fold it over a few times. You really want this to be a snug fit. Sometimes I have to fold it 3 times because I don't make these for each individual one. This one right here seems to work fairly well. So I'm going to push that in there, right? And then I'm going to, I don't know how it's going to translate on camera, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this kind of in a downward angle, like a sharp angle, and usually it'll pop right out. Well, it didn't pop right out, but it came out enough. Let's see. Okay. There. And then it popped right out that time. And so it'll pop right out of there. And then at this point, there's no real reason to jam chuck it back in there. But in the case that you forgot to address the bottom, you could turn this around and put it in that way. And you can address the bottom if you need to. But at this point, all you have to do is take a little bit of, usually I just take sandpaper. See, I get a little bit of 120 grit, or very small size piece like that. Fold it in half so I got a little edge there. Crank the speed down a bit, and then I just hold it right here, right here on the edge to remove some of that, just a little small amounts of that material. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be focusing too much on this edge. You really want to focus on that flat inside. This is how you're going to get a really good like air fit. So, and I actually sanded it too long. So I should have stopped while I was ahead, but now it'll just fall out of there. But regardless, that doesn't really matter because the only people who want the air fit, you know, where it dropped down slow are really wood turners anyway. So, but anyway, there's the lid. And then, let's see. And then you just turn a pull. So I think I'm well over here. So I'm going to switch back. All right. So I'm going to take a look at the chat up here. I've neglected it terribly. Let's see if I missed anything. Let's see. Thank you, Blue Light Turners Workshop, for reminding folks to hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up, guys. It really helps. Let's see. Yeah, let's see what else is in here. Misfit asked if I turn green wood much. Yeah, actually I do. I turn the majority of the wood that I turn in my shop is wood that I collected on the side of the road. And on occasion, I used to do it a lot more often. I will turn things green all the way to finish just to see what warping and drying will do to it. Let's see. How you doing, Brick House? Let's see here. Where's a good place to buy metal spinning tools? News Now Fort Worth. I'm not sure. Tool rest with holes and bead roller. Just wondering. Not sure what that's about. Oh, and thank you, Jeff, for the happy birthday. Happy birthday wishes. So. And Misfit 74, I have the Harbor Freight pressure pot. So, okay. So I didn't exactly get to wrap this thing up, but I'm pretty much there. I mean, the rest of it, I've already covered it, so I don't think I'll do another live on this. But basically, take this off so we can talk about it. So basically, you have your box, the base of your box, and the lid. Okay. And then the thing you would do next is you would turn a pull. I think that might actually be the right size to fit down in there. It is. So it's not a pretty one, but there's one. There is a pull. But anyway, basically what I would do is I would take this and turn it down into a little pull of some sort. This is a piece of ebony. And then glue that in there, right? And then at that point, you would be pretty much there. And then I showed you how to make... I talked about how you make the cuts on the shoulders. The only thing is you'll apply that information with like a parting tool or something like that to part off the side. And if I can find my bottom saver. So this is the measurement for the inside of the box. So what you'll do is you'll take that and put it on the outside, and you'll make a mark. Make sure you leave a little bit of extra room for the bottom. Leave more than you need. But before you reverse mount it on a jam chuck, make sure that you make a mark for where the bottom is, and then make another mark for the very bottom of your piece. That way you don't find the inside from the bottom, which would be terrible, because there's not really a way to check it when it's on a jam chuck. But that's pretty much it. Anything that I missed in the demo, anything I missed in the live, you can find on the YouTube video that I posted earlier this week. So. Let's see. I think I got a few more questions squeezed in there at the end. Man, I got to get my ear fixed. Let's see. News Now Fort Worth asks, where do I buy my chucks? Wherever I can get a deal on them. I got a lot of them when I was doing. I did quite a bit of video work and brand ambassador type stuff with Nova, and that really helped me to build up my collection of chucks and jaws and things like that. So I do have that little unfair advantage there. So all right. So unless anybody else has any questions they want to throw up in the chat real quick in the next minute or so, I guess that's just about it. I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do next week. It's always a challenge. Trying to figure out what to do next. What am I barbecuing tonight? Actually, yesterday I barbecued. We made Hawaiian burgers. So I make real thick patties, and then I put a little bit of. I have a seasoning that I put on pineapples, and we grill pineapple. I know a lot of people have issues with putting pineapples on stuff, but in this house we love it. And I put some pineapples and some grilled onions and things, and we had some Hawaiian burgers yesterday. But I think I'll be getting into some ribs here maybe in the next couple weeks or so. So, all right, folks. Well, I guess that wraps it up. Let's see. Mark the Gentleman Wood Turner asks, are there any jaws I don't have? Not from Nova, no. But I would like some extra jaws for maybe my Vic Mark or my Robert Sorby chuck, but there's always time. So anyway, thanks everybody. Remember, get out in your workshops, make a mess, have some fun, dreadnought and make something. Peace.